So how do you file a claim for excess funds? Well, it depends. Like any good lawyer, that's the first thing I have to start with. But let's talk about what it actually depends on, so I get you something useful today, because I promise I will give you the ins and the outs, the good and the bad of how to file a claim for surplus funds. Number one thing to know. In most cases, it's just a claim to an administrative agency, usually the agency that did the foreclosing. So for example, it might be the tax collector's office or a division of the tax collector's office, like for example, the collections division. So the way to track that down is look to see who advertises the upcoming tax sales. And it could be the county sheriff, it could be the county auditor, it could be the county treasurer, it could be the county tax collector. So, counties can assign these tasks to different agencies, but they'll assign it to somebody. And the place to start with, because whoever puts out the list is the person that is going to hold the auction, and the person that holds the auction is going to be usually the one that holds the money, and you apply to them for the money. So let's talk about what's going to be in this claim. Well, generally, if it's an administrative claim, they're going to have a form that they want you to fill out. Forms are not very complicated. It's going to have information like what tax sale are you talking about? This is the January 2026 sale. Okay, great. So they want to know that. They want to know what was the address of the property, what was the former owner's name, and who are you? Are you the former owner? Are you some mortgage lender? Who are you, and why are you claiming this money? So pretty easy to fill in, and the nice ladies and gentlemen that work in those offices, if you have a question about what goes in a certain slot on their form, they're generally very, very helpful, and you just call them up and say, hey, I'm looking for this. Like, I'll just give you an example. I was filing a surplus funds claim, and there was something that I didn't recognize which said map index number. And I thought, what is map index number? I don't know. So I called up, and a nice lady answered the phone, and I said, hey, I'm trying to put in a surplus funds claim for this property, and there's something in the form called map index number. I don't know, what is that? And she said, oh, which one are you working on? And I told her, and she said, oh, just wait a minute. And so she came back like a minute later to the phone and said, just write this number in there. So I wrote it down, and she said, just for future reference, that's the tax assessor assigns an ID number, that's that. And I said, oh. I said, we call those PIN numbers or parcel identifier numbers in our jurisdiction. I said, I get it. That's all. But the point was, I didn't know, and I just asked. And the nice lady just said, oh, put this in there. And then she explained it to me. Usually I found the county personnel are very helpful, very nice people. Just be respectful to them, and they're great. You have great conversations with them, and they will help you out, because they don't, their forms are not some government secret. They want you to fill in the form right so they can process the claim and not have a headache. So generally speaking, with those forms, they're going to give you a list of what you need to supply with it. Usually it's a copy of a government ID of the person making the claim, driver's license, passport, government issued though. So typically driver's license or passport, a non-driver ID works too. So they're going to want that. Sometimes they want some proof of prior ownership, like they'll say, oh, give us a copy of the last deed on the property. And that's the deed, by the way, that has the person making the claim as the grantee or new owner. So it might go from Ironstone Property Development Company to Sam and Linda Smith, and Sam and Linda Smith being the people who ultimately lost the property. They want to see that deed, and they just do that because it's easy for them to say, oh, that was the old owner. So sometimes they'll want that, usually not a lot else. These things are not complicated. You're generally going to mail that in or have it hand delivered or FedEx or UPS. You get it in, and then they'll process it and cut you a check. And they give very clear instructions too. One of the things to know is that if you, for example, forget something, the nice people at the county will generally put the whole package back in the mail to you. They mail it with a little sticky note that says, oh, need copy of former owner's ID, or whatever it is they need, and they'll tell you. Again, they're not trying to not pay you. They're just trying to get their forms completed and whatever ancillary paperwork they need. But generally, it's not a lot that you need, just pretty small. So those are what are called non-judicial or administrative claims with an administrative agency. There's another way some of these are handled, and that's the judicial claims. Judicial claim means that it's in court. So it means the money is being held in court. So if where you got the list was from the court system, then that money is being held in court, and then you're going to need to bring in a lawyer to file a petition on your behalf to go get the money. Usually, thankfully, it's not a terribly expensive process. $2,500 can usually get it done if it's not overly complicated. And sometimes even to get lawyers to take it on a contingent basis, just talk to them and see. This is a simple process. So you file a petition, which the lawyer will prepare, but basically it just recounts the story. It says, on January 1st, 2026, the property 123 Main Street was sold at tax sale. It belonged to Sally Smith. The property was sold for $200,000. There was $100,000 in taxes owed. There's $100,000 that's left over. I represent, or I am, Sally Smith, and please direct the county treasurer to give a check to Sally Smith, or direct the clerk of court to give a check to Sally Smith. And then that is submitted to the court, served on any parties that need to know about it, like the county tax collector's office, for example. And then a judge will schedule a scheduling conference, or an initial hearing, maybe called that. And that's usually about 45 days after the papers are submitted. And the judge will say, what's this about? How much time do you need? Understand what the case is about. And they'll say, okay, we'll set up a hearing. Usually that hearing is going to be about 45 days in advance. And at that hearing, anybody who wants to lay claim to that money will show up, including you, if you want the money. And usually nobody else does show up, but if anybody did, like say a mortgage company or whatever, you deal with them, but usually nobody shows up. And the judge says, okay, I'll issue an order telling the person holding the money, which will either be county treasurer, county auditor, the tax collector's office, or more likely the clerk of court, to cut you a check. And usually you get a check about 2 weeks later. So not terribly complicated, probably going to cost you $2,500 or so, but very, very worthwhile. And that's the judicial process. Now, when you look for a lawyer, you're not going to find lawyers with experience in this, because this is a very obscure little part of the business world not many people know about. So what I would say is look for a lawyer who does real estate as one of his practice areas or her practice areas, and also someone that might have something like tax assessment appeals. They would probably know about this. Typically, I like to work with lawyers in smaller firm practice settings, anywhere from 1 to 3 lawyers in their office. They tend to handle smaller matters. I'd get someone with at least 10 years worth of experience, because it takes a while to get your feet under you as a lawyer, and hire them to do the work. And you're going to find if you go in the business, you'll get some good lawyers, some bad lawyers. Sometimes you have to go through a couple of stinkers to get to a good one. But with enough follow-up, they can all get through this. Just look for someone who does your work promptly. But you can make a great business out of this, or if you're a former homeowner that lost a house, you can get some money back. And if you're strapped for cash, just talk to the lawyer about doing it on a contingent fee, and that's going to work out best for you. I'd encourage you, this is really worthwhile, great work. If you're looking for a business venture, I love this business venture. And the reason I love it is that I help people who have lost everything. They lost the roof over their head. That's very devastating to them. They almost never know that there's any money they could get or how that would ever work. So you show up, you say, hey, good news, I found some money that you could potentially claim. If you'd like to work with me, I'll do the work. And if I'm successful, I'll get a percentage of what we recover, just like a contingent fee lawyer would get. If I'm not successful, it doesn't cost you anything. And you don't need to be a lawyer to do this work. This is not legal work, so you don't need to be a lawyer. If you need one, you'll hire one to do the judicial claims. But you don't need to be a lawyer. And as you learn where to operate, you can certainly operate only in the states and counties where there are non-judicial claims, meaning you're just filling in a simple form and giving that to the agency, and then they cut a check. So you don't need to be a lawyer. So it can be a really great business. I would say the person that would love this business is someone who would love the idea of helping people and making great money. And you're a serious business person who's going to make the effort, you're going to learn, you're going to go do the work. You can make a great success out of this. Like anything, it involves effort, definitely effort to learn, understand how it works, and then implement. But the opportunity here is really terrific. It's my favorite business I've ever owned, and I really love it. So if you want to learn more about this, I have a resource for you. If you click down below, I put a link to a intro to the tax overages business. It's maybe 15 minutes. It's right here on YouTube. It's completely free. I dive deeper into the ins and outs of how this business works. So if you want to explore it a little further with me, then definitely click on that video. I'd also tell you that you're on the right track. If you're looking for a business opportunity that doesn't cost a lot of money to start, doesn't cost a lot of money to run, that you can make really good money with, and you can help people, this is a great business for that. And for that kind of person, I think you'll love this business. So hopefully this was helpful to you in starting to understand how to claim excess funds and what your next steps would be. this can really be a terrific business, and I hope this is helpful. If you have more questions, more things you're wondering about, put them down below. My staff and I do go through them. We collect them together, and we try to do videos if the same people are asking the same kind of question over and over again. We really try to do a video on that to directly answer that question, because it's great for me to know, hey, what more do you want to know? Then I can do more videos on it, because I know this business inside and out, but I don't always know the questions that everybody else has, and I'd love to be helpful to you. So put in your questions down below, and if you're interested in taking the next step, just click on the link to the intro to the Overages business, and I will see you over there.